Okay, I am back. I got disconnected, so I just want to read the rest of this section on King George going to India, getting crowned as the Emperor and Empress of India. So they had 100,000 Indian subjects attending the coronation. So I will begin reading again. The great coronation Durbar, which had occupied the thoughts of India for more than a year, has involved the most elaborate preparation. It has brought 250,000 people together from every part of the Indian Empire. It was held today on the vast plains beyond Delhi, enthroned on a high beneath a golden dome, looking outwards to the far north whence they came. Their Majesties, the King-Emperor and the Queen-Empress, were acclaimed by over 100,000 of their subjects. The ceremony and its culminating point exactly typified the Oriental conception of the ultimate repositories of imperial power. The monarch sat alone, remote but beneficent, raised far above the multitude, but visible to all, clad in rich vestments, flanked by radiant emblems of authority, guarded by a glittering array of troops, the cynosures of the proudest princess of India, the central figures in what was surely the most majestic assemblage ever seen in the East. So let's just see. Do you see how that is? That is how they are. They were raised up high. Okay. It was a sight which all remain indelibly graved upon the memory. Not a soul who witnessed it, not even the poorest coolie who stood fascinated and awed upon the outskirts of the throng, could have been unresponsive to its profound significance. There can be only one verdict upon it. The Durbar has been far more than a mere success. It had been a triumphant vindication of the wise prescience which conceived and planned it. The King-Emperor's mission to his Indian people has been fulfilled with completeness, which places it beyond the reach of criticism. Even the king himself, who shunned hyperbole, described the Durbar as the most beautiful and wonderful sight I ever saw. The rest of his account is admittably homespun, it ends. Reached the camp at 3:00, rather tired after wearing the crown for 3.5 hours. It hurt my head, and it is pretty heavy. Afterwards, we held a reception in the large tent. About 5,000 people came. The heat was simply awful. Bed at 11:00 and quite tired. The day's demonstration of loyalty was marred by a single uncouth incident. The Gaekwar of Baroda appeared at the Durbar, like his fellow Maharajas, wearing a festive display of jewels. These he removed shortly before the arrival of the King-Emperor. When it came to his turn to pay homage, he sauntered towards his sovereign in the everyday dress of a Maharata, with a walking stick in hand. After a perfunctory obeisance, he turned abruptly and walked back to his seat. Baroda later denied that he had shown intentional disrespect and offered an apology. This the king accepted, but he remained unconvinced of the Gaekwar's good faith. The king had done his duty. Now he claimed his reward, almost a fortnight in pursuit of tiger, rhinoceros, and a bear. Throughout the year he had given almost as much thought to the Nepalese expedition as to the Durbar itself. He told the viceroy, "As probably this will be the last and only time in my life when I shall get a big game shooting of its kind, I naturally want to have as many days in Nepal as possible." Crewe would have preferred the time to be spent on an official tour at Madras. He wrote mournfully to Harding, "It is a misfortune for a public personage to have any taste so strongly developed as the craze for shooting is in our beloved ruler. His perspective of what is proper is almost destroyed." Both Secretary of State and Viceroy were nevertheless obliged to meet the King-Emperor's wishes, thankful that at least he had relinquished a plan to shoot duck. For a semi-divinity to be seen wallowing through a swamp in waders could not have been appropriate. The Maharaja Chandra Shamsher Jung of Nepal excelled himself as a host. 600 elephants and more than 14,000 beaters and other retainers were engaged in providing suitable sport. The total bag was 39 tigers, 18 rhino, and 4 bears, of which the king shot 21 tigers, 8 rhino, and 1 bear. A record, he noted, and I will think it will be very hard to beat. The Batu failed to impress Lord Durham, who wrote to Lord Rosebery that the tigers had been slaughtered without any chance of escape. That was not the king's wish. As deadly with his rifle as he is with his shotgun, he would have welcomed a more searching test of skill. During the king's shooting holiday, the queen went sightseeing in Agra, where 70 years later, some of the shops she visited still proclaim her patronage. Then she took a tour of Rajputana. Whether outshining the Indian princes with this magnificence of her recently retrieved family emeralds or going for a drive in a bullock cart, she was equally imposing and equally imperturbable. The queen showed to particular advantage in Calcutta, where she rejoined the king for their last week in India. The mercantile community felt betrayed by the transfer of the capital from their own city to Delhi. It's a natural resentment which the royal visitors did their best to appease. An equerry noted that the Queen's painstaking success with the big commercial people here, who are rather neglected generally. The King was overcome with emotion during his farewell speech in Bombay. He knew he had little hope of seeing India again. But as he was about to embark with the Queen for the journey home, he could not resist chaffing Harding. "You seem very pleased, Charlie, to get rid of us." If the viceroy appeared content, it was not as parting from two such grateful and considerate guests, but at the unbroken success of their visit. In 1912, India was already begun her checkered progress towards self-government. Yet paternalism and pageantry, it seemed, still retained their place in national life. At best, ties of affinity between one civilization and another. At worst, the bread and circus with which an earlier empire had still disaffection. A few months after the king's return to England, the viceroy wrote to him, "When I look upon the past year, I cannot help feeling profoundly satisfied with the peace, the contentment, and the prosperity that prevails throughout your Majesty's Indian Empire." 6 days later, as Harding made his first secretary his first state entry into the new capital. A bomb was thrown at his elephant, seriously wounding the viceroy and killing his personal attendant. And that is the end of King George going to Delhi, Durbar, having his coronation. It was very well received, but as you could tell, there was a brewing inclination towards self-government and independence that was occurring during his reign. So I will end it here so we can focus on the next chapter, the next section, which will be about the Irish Home Rule, which is very interesting and very significant. Again, both India and Ireland were having brewing notions of independence and self-government, and this was all happening during King George V's reign. It was all transpiring during his reign. So